This is Carl the Cobra Frutch, and you're watching Lights Out.
Devin Haney absolutely dominates Regis Prograis to become the new WBC Super Lightweight Champion. We'll be asking the boxing fans, where does Haney rank in the current pound-for-pound list? Chris Billam-Smith retains his WBO Cruiserweight title in front of his beloved Bournemouth crowd. What next for Billam-Smith? Will he look to unify, or could he potentially be looking at some big domestic rematches? This is Lights Out. I am Faisal Khan, and this is podcast 68 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast, proudly sponsored by the beloved Spartans Law. And with me, as always, I'm joined by the controversial Ron, Mr. Mohsin Gulsher. Before we get started, Ron would just like to wish you a happy belated birthday, my man. How does it feel to be 45 years old?
Fuck off, not 45.
Oh, well, okay, 55 it is. Before we do get started with the podcast, just a quick usual reminders. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell for more Lights Out Boxing content. Check us out on all the social media platforms. And if you want to know more about our sponsors, the beloved Spartans Law, their website link is below in the description. And of course, if you're a fan of your audio podcasts, this podcast will be on Spotify and all of the other audio platforms. Again, links are below in the description. We'll start off with the quickfire question, which is now the responsibility of Ron. So, Ron, like I said, you're responsible now for the quickfire question. I have no idea what you're going to ask me. So fire away, lad, before we dive into tonight's podcast.
Okay, here we go. Here's this week's quickfire question. I want to know your biggest flop or underachiever in boxing. Someone that's been incredibly hyped up, that didn't quite live up to his or her expectation, was overly kind of hyped. Well, who do you think that kind of fits into that category?
Wow. You don't ask the easy questions, do you, mate? I would have to say, off the top of my head, I'd have to go for Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Lost a lot of big fights. Failed to live up to the old man's name. I just felt as if he didn't take his career serious enough.
He also lost against Anderson Silva.
Yes.
Well, exactly. Which I found shocking. That was really bad. It was a dark day for boxing, that.
Yeah. I don't like slagging fighters off because obviously, you know, it takes guts getting into the ring, regardless of whether you're the son of a former boxing legend or whether you're a journeyman. But I just felt he was a fighter that underachieved throughout his career, and I just felt as if when I was watching him, it didn't look like he'd been training properly. It didn't look like he was taking camp serious. He just looked like a very difficult fighter to work with. So I'd have to say Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I would have said Adrian Broner, but then I've got to look at Broner and I think the guy's a 4-weight world champion? So he hasn't had that bad a career. But yeah, I would definitely have to say Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Who's your biggest flop in boxing?
Let's see if you can guess who it is with the nickname A-Force. Audley Harrison. Oh. Clearly, his name wasn't as we hoped his boxing career would have been. But I don't know. I just thought, I thought he was next in reign to take over from Lennox Lewis when he retired. Audley Harrison won gold at the Olympics, yeah. I believe. There was a lot of hype around him and a lot of expectation. And it just didn't really take off. It just seems to, I remember his matchmaking, they were just fighting a lot of bums and a lot of people. And we thought, okay, this is going to build him for the next fight. And yeah, I mean, then he did get a few paydays against the David Hayes, which we all know how that finished. Very disappointing.
He lost to Deontay Wilder, didn't he?
He got, yeah, I think it was in the first or second round, I think it was, that was. The David Hay one was just embarrassing for boxing. I think they threatened to withhold his purse. That's how bad his performance was because he hardly threw a punch. I don't know what he was thinking or doing in that fight, or what his game plan was. I just thought, yes, here we go. We've got a British heavyweight that's gonna make a mark in boxing, but it just didn't take off for him at all. Like, he can't complain. He's got a gold amateur, Olympic medal. So that's my one for me.
The pizza that I ordered for that fight lasted longer than the actual fight. But yeah, I'd agree with you. The Harrison fighter that never failed to live up to expectation. But listen, man, as we say, it's a brutal sport, and some fighters are gonna go to that next level. Some fighters don't. And again, with what we've said, we don't mean any disrespect to any fighter, but yeah, I've gone for Cesar Chavez Jr. You've gone for Audley Harrison. There's a lot more fighters out there that just haven't lived up to expectation. There's going to be a lot more fighters that won't live up to expectation. It's the toughest sport in the world. Time will tell who our next flop in boxing is going to be. And if we can get the viewers involved in that question, that'd be brilliant. Comment away on who your flop in boxing is. Let's dive into it, because we've got to talk about what went down between Devin Haney and Regis Prograis. First of all, build up to the fight was fantastic. I enjoyed the back and forth. I enjoyed the face-off. I had it down as the fight of the year. This was obviously before the fight. I believe it was going to be a fight of the year contender. But I'd have to sum the fight up as a one-sided beatdown. Devin Haney, for me, proved why he is currently one of the best fighters in the world. A phenomenal performance. There was a lot of questions being asked about Haney given his performance against Lomachenko, but he done the business against a great fighter in Regis Prograis, because that's what he is, regardless of the result. But on the night, Haney was too good for him. He's now the WBC super lightweight champion. And Ron, what do we put Haney's performance down to on the night, and what did you make of how Prograis performed?
I think he was just outclassed, simply. Haney really kind of, that's probably up there with one of his, or the best performance that he's shown. I mean, he got a lot of kind of criticism against the Lomachenko fight, but he's fighting world-class operator, best technician in boxing, great footwork. But I mean, it was questionable whether he won that fight. I think Haney did, that jab. He's got a really, really good, effective jab that he uses really well. He timed his punches really well. I think Prograis just didn't have any answers. I think he was trying to lean in. Haney would just completely get out of trouble using his footwork. And was it round? It was one of the earlier rounds that he dropped him as well, Prograis as well. So Prograis never been dropped before as well. So yeah, I think that's a really, in my opinion, 9 or a 10 out of 10 performance there. Obviously he didn't get the KO, but he's not known for knocking opponents out. But that was a boxing masterclass. I think the scorecards, what 120, 107, I think, on one scorecard. So that just shows you how, he levels above what he was. And if you listen to what Regis Prograis said at the end, he goes, man, that mother, a lot tougher than I expected. They came with bold predictions that they were going to put him to sleep or knock him out, but it didn't go the fight didn't go that way.
Yeah, I'm glad Prograis gave credit where it's due. I'm glad there was no excuses. That's what I like about Prograis. He's a straightforward guy. Haney was just too good for him on the night. In every department, footwork, working behind the jab. One thing I liked about Haney was, even when he got the knockdown, he wasn't, he never wanted to go in for the kill. He put on an absolute boxing masterclass. And I think sometimes fans don't really rate performances like that, but you have to look at it from a different angle, where he's gone up in weight after the Lomachenko fight. A lot of fighters in Haney's position might have taken a warm-up fight just to sort of get used to the weight, but he didn't. And his performance was second to none. It was his career best performance. And I've got to say right now that you have to sort of put him probably in the top 5 pound for pound list. I mean, all right, so the Lomachenko fight, a lot of people had it down as a controversial decision, but to beat Lomachenko and Prograis within 1 year, says a lot about the guy. I think, Haney could be even bigger than he is right now. we've spoken about this a lot of times about the American fighters, and we've always said if they could come over to the UK, feature more in the UK, I believe their profile rises, I believe their following rises. But obviously, that's what we want. They look at the US market in a different angle to we do. But I really do believe that we could be potentially looking at one of the greats of the sport. And the beauty of Devin Haney is the fights he's going to be in after this fight are going to be even bigger. You know, you look at some of the names that they've mentioned. You know, Shakur Stevenson, Ryan Garcia, Tio Lopez. You know, even you've got Conor Benn calling him out today on Twitter.
Mhm.
The guy's got some big fights waiting for him. But in terms of Regis Prograis, take nothing away from him. Great fighter, you know, absolute warrior in the ring. It's going to be interesting to see what he does next because, you know, he's I believe he's what, 32 years old? He's still easily got another 4 or 5 years left in the sport. We said it was a masterclass of a performance, but you also have to sort of analyse what went wrong for Regis Prograis. You're looking back at that performance, Ron. Would you say the camp was taken serious? Would you say he looked dead at the weight? This is a guy that, you know, has been fighting at super lightweight now for quite a while. Do you think the next move for Prograis is to go up to 147, or do you think he can still hang with these boys at super lightweight?
I'd like to see him go up. I think you know, he's got the. I think he'll do well in the 147 division. I don't know if he might be a contender because there's some really good 147ers at the moment in boxing. But look, take nothing away. Regis Prograis has lost against who did he lose against? Taylor. Was it Josh Taylor was the first defeat, but that was close. That could have gone either way. He just got outboxed, outworked, outjabbed by, you know, Devin Haney, who, you know, as you rightly called him, a top 5 pound for pounder. So look, nothing for him to kind of lose sleep about. Look, he just lost against a better fighter. You know, he'll come again. You know, he's exciting to watch. You know, his build up to the fight was great. You know, with his, you know, with coach and, you know, or slash trainer, with the back and forth with the Haneys. So Haney, you just nailed it on his head. It's like he's linked with all the big fights. Tank, you know, that's the one that we really want to see. But knowing how boxing is, maybe they'll tease it out another fight more. You know, maybe Tank hasn't fought since Ryan Garcia, so he might want to get a fight in. So, could we? I'd love to see a Haney come over to the UK and fight. I mean, I don't see that fight against Conor Benn happening in the UK anytime soon.
Well, Conor Benn called him out
yeah.
on Twitter today saying that, listen, EubankJr hasn't put pen to paper, and I'm more than happy to welcome you to the 147 division, which we'll get onto in a bit. But I don't think he should go up to 147. As we mentioned, there's big fights up at super lightweight. You know, Teofimo Lopez holds one of the belts. You know, I believe Tank is going to go up in weight. Ryan Garcia has gone up in weight. We don't know what Lomachenko is going to do next. And no disrespect, I don't think a rematch with Lomachenko generates money. You know, Haney's a former undisputed champion. He's now a 2-weight world champion. If I'm Devin Haney, I'm thinking, you know what, I'm still fairly young in my career. Right about now, I want to be targeting the biggest and best fights. And of course, you know, you'd want to be making as much money as possible. I do think the fight with Conor Benn does generate quite a bit of money because Conor Benn's a big name down here. You know, Haney's a big name in the US. Bring them together. Who knows? But I honestly think that the best fight next for Devin Haney is Tank Davis. I'd love to see that fight. I think you've got.
Do you see that realistically happening?
Well, it depends. It depends what Tank wants to do next, and it also depends on what Haney wants to do next. You know.
Do you not think that Tank's going to have another fight just because he's been inactive since that Garcia fight?
Ron, let's go back to 2021, right? January 2021, when Ryan Garcia defeated Luke Campbell. Me, you, and HF done a podcast talking about the potential 4 kings. Okay, within that time, right? Since 2021, I know we've had the pandemic, rare. We've seen Garcia fight Tank, and we've seen Lomachenko fight Haney. Okay, right? We don't need to see warm-up fights. We don't need to see finding my feet at a certain weight. We need to see the best fight and the best. It's been a very good year for boxing. And I'm a firm believer of if it makes sense, if it makes money, it makes sense. So why not make Tank versus Devin Haney. You know, Devin Haney versus Tio Lopez, another great fight. Ryan Garcia's talking about fighting Devin Haney. I think Devin Haney would absolutely school him right now. And that's no disrespect to Ryan Garcia. I just think Haney, you know, you have to put him in with the Anues, with the Usyks, with the Crawfords. You know, he is in that list right now. The Furies as well. You know, he's amongst the elite fighters in this world right now. Bivol as well. So I think with Haney being amongst those fighters right now, you know, there's two fights you put him in next. You either put him in with Tank or you put him in with Tio Lopez. You've got a unification fight right there. Makes a lot of money, makes a lot of sense. I think right now Devin Haney needs to target making money, but he also needs to be targeted to get a couple of more belts. Get a couple more belts by his side, and then you potentially look at 147. Realistically, what do you think Haney will do next? Well, who do you think is the next realistic opponent for him?
I mean, with what you were saying about when me and you had our talk in 2021 after the Luke Campbell and Ryan Garcia fight, yeah, clear up the 140 division. That kind of, there's some really good names there that will sell, that will get boxing enthusiasts very excited. You know, against Tank, against Garcia, against Teofimo Lopez. Any of those fights, that would be ideal for me. Because he's in his prime right now. I think the way that performance against Regis Prograis, so that's strike while the iron's hot. I would put him in with another big fight. I'd love to see him come over to the UK, fight someone like a Conor Benn, if that's a possibility. But I doubt that's going to happen. I mean, could we see them in a kind of Middle East or Saudi card? Maybe. You never know.
Only time will tell what's next for Devin Haney, but also time will tell what's next for Regis Prograis. Two outstanding fighters, and 2024 is a great year to look forward to, especially in that 140 super lightweight division. Chris Billam-Smith retained his WBO cruiserweight title against Matheusz Masternak on Sunday night in his hometown in Bournemouth. It wasn't an easy ride for Chris Billam-Smith. Looking back on the fight, a lot of people had Chris Billam-Smith fairly behind on the scorecards, but Billam-Smith inflicted enough damage to stop Matheusz Masternak. Now, Ron, Chris Billam-Smith had the night of his life when he won the world title in the Vitality Stadium of his beloved football crowd in Bournemouth against Lawrence Okolie. You know, and there was a lot of talk about a rematch with Lawrence Okolie, but it was Matheusz Masternak who he fought on Sunday. It wasn't a great performance, but he got the job done. Sum up his performance with what did you make of it? Was you expecting a lot more given the fact that it was his first world title defense?
Yes, I was expecting a more of an emphatic performance. I thought Masternak was really unlucky. I thought he boxed really well. He got the combinations. He was a busier fighter. I think that Chris Billam-Smith was eating a lot of punches. I think the commentators were kept mentioning about a lack of head movement. So he was kind of on the receiving end. And I thought this boy needs to kind of really turn it around here because he's gonna fall behind on points. And you got to, give credit where it's due. Masternak, who's had a career, he's what, 36 years old. And this was his moment. This was his first title fight. First time fighting for a world title, and unfortunately, injury got the better of him. Which was a rib injury? Going into that, that round, I thought, okay, Billam-Smith's kind of the halfway mark. He seemed to be kind of landing the more. Masternak, kind of slowed down a little bit. I don't know if that was the game plan to take it into the second half of the fight, but I just thought Billam-Smith was eating way too many punches when he was kind of get on the inside. But take nothing away from both fighters. I think it was a Masternak. Unfortunately, it wasn't his night, and I think that will probably be he won't get another world title shot. But Billam-Smith kind of produced the goods in front of his home fans, and it was quite emotional for him. Yeah, so onwards and upwards for him. This was a scare. I think he probably took a lot. I think he probably learned a lot from this fight.
I'm gonna have to be a bit critical of.
Sorry, I'll let you speak on
Masternak. I'm sorry, but all right, fine. I get the fact that he picked up an injury, but this is your world title shot. You're ahead on the scorecards. I would have liked to have seen him go out on his shield. I mean, I don't know the extent of the injury. I don't know how bad it is. He performed really
Was it a
well.
broken rib, or we don't know yet?
He performed really well, right? I had him 6-1 up. 5 rounds left in the fight. You know, maybe another 1 or 2, you win on a points decision, even though you're the away fighter. But it was pretty clear that there was a huge gap in terms of the points, the judges' scorecards. I just think he took the easy way out. Again, I don't want to like slag him off. I don't want to like, you know, slate the guy. You know, you just said it. You probably never get a world title shot again. That was his moment. You know, I mean, surely he should have just thought, let me give it another round. You know, let me see if the adrenaline can get me through. I mean, you know, world title fights, they don't happen every day for fighters. You know, Masternak, a lot of people had him coming into his fight. Yeah, he's going to get done over in a few rounds. He performed really well. They picked up this injury and they just called the fight off. If I was in this corner, I would have said, look, I mean, I know it's the corner's job to protect the fight. I would have said, give me one more round. Just see how you do. Give another round. I was a bit disappointed that they called the fight off.
Yeah. I mean, Masternak was a voluntary defense, wasn't it? It wasn't a mandatory. So, and a lot of people had Masternak as a favorite going into that fight. Johnny Nelson, you know, he knows a thing or two about that weight, you know, that weight division. He, you know, kind of was siding with Masternak, and he was proven to be right. You know, in the early stage of the fight, the first 6-7, absolutely outboxing him. I don't know, Billam-Smith. I think maybe that was a lucky escape, because that would have really affected his kind of future, you know, big fight kind of ambitions, you know, against the Riakporhe, against the rematch against Lawrence Okolie, and whatever, you know, came his way. So that was a blessing that it did finish that way. Well, but we never know, you know, would Billam-Smith would have, would he have come on stronger in that second half of the fight? You know, obviously the injury kind of came in, which was a bit of an anticlimax, because I was really looking forward to seeing how how fight management, you know, how they kind of handle that pressure and see out the rounds and kind of nick rounds. That's when you see the real championship boxing. But it didn't go that far.
What next for Chris Billam-Smith? I mean, he said that he wants to become undisputed. But you also look at the fact that contractually he has still got a rematch with Lawrence Okolie. What my favorite cruiserweight, Richard Riakporhe, was also at the fight. You know, I said about Devin Haney, if it makes money, makes sense. But obviously, Billam-Smith's aim is to become undisputed. He's had a bit of a wake-up call against the European fighter. I believe Jay Okolie would be a step way too quick for him at the moment. I'm not saying that it's a fight that can't happen. But what do you do next if you're Ben Shalom, boxing Sky Sports? Do you look at making rematches with the likes of Okolie and Riakporhe, or do you maybe sort of branch out to maybe a Gulamari, or see how Okolie gets on next weekend against Ellis Zorro? What do you do next with him?
I mean, Okolie is kind of having his issues with he might have to relinquish that belt. Is that
he'll win that belt back? He'll win that belt.
Yeah. Back. Well, look, I mean, that's fair enough. So he's kind of tied up for now, but he's got in his kind of sights, he's got the Riakporhe kind of chomping at the bit to get that world title fight. You got Lawrence Okolie, who's kind of licking his wounds and biding his time. You know, that's his first loss of his career. Let's not rule him out. See, that's the type of fight that Lawrence Okolie would have kind of really finished that off in style, I reckon, if that was Lawrence Okolie against Masternak. He would have made it ugly, but he would have finished him off, I reckon. So so there's only 1 or 2 fights there for him. There's no point in looking at these unknown names or not fighting for belts, because that doesn't sell, you know. Whether we see that again at the Bournemouth Stadium or, you know, at the football stadium. That wasn't at the football stadium, was it? That fight?
No.
It was at the football stadium. Okay.
No. The fight on Sunday was at the Bournemouth International Centre, I believe. It wasn't at the Vitality.
Yeah. So if he gets a big name, be it Riakporhe, be it Lawrence Okolie rematch, that's going to sell out a football stadium. Wouldn't you agree?
I like the idea of Riakporhe going to Selhurst Park. Riakporhe getting his world title shot at Selhurst Park. I mean, we've seen what Bournemouth football stadium could do for boxing. You know, why not take it to Selhurst Park? But listen, either way, Billam-Smith, you know, he's a world champion. He's had a phenomenal year. He's got big nights ahead of him. It's going to be interesting to see what he does next. I like to see the Riakporhe fight. Whether that happens, who knows? 2024 is a big year for British boxing. Huge year. And Billam-Smith, Riakporhe, Okolie, you know, all these boys are going to be in some big nights. It got announced a little earlier on that TNT Sports would also be broadcasting the huge Day of Reckoning card. So it'll be like a dual broadcast between them and DAZN. You know, in the past, Ron, we've spoken about what if Fury for AJ, you know, would it go to DAZN? Would it go to BT, TNT Sports? And then we've obviously spoken about dual broadcasting. So this is going to be a first for us. I mean, you'd have to go back to the days of Lewis Tyson when HBO and Showtime both broadcasted the fight. You know, are you kind of surprised that TNT Sports are going to be also broadcasting the show, or do you think that this is something that boxing needs to see, sort of like test the waters and see how it works out in terms of who buys more pay-per-views and who's going to tune into where?
I mean, that was going to be my next question. Where are you tuning in? You know, which broadcasting will you be watching it? Because, you know, which commentary do you prefer? Which analyst do you prefer?
I'll be watching it on whichever's got the best stream on my IPTV box. I couldn't care less. You know what? I do like Darren Fletcher, but DAZN, since they've moved away from Sky, I've never really. I like Andy Lee. I like listening to Andy Lee, but it'd probably be TNT Sports. But yeah, just sort of the politics behind this decision to sort of dual broadcasting. What do you make of it?
No, it's collaboration at the end of the day. Like, we've been frustrated previously as boxing fans where these promotional companies weren't working together. Now we've got them kind of at the same table, and no one misses out. You know, everyone's gonna get to see a great event of this, you know, this amazing lineup that we've spoke about in a few podcasts ago. So, look, I'm excited either way. Look, it's shown. And people have a choice of they want to watch on TNT. They might prefer certain broadcast analysts, or they might prefer DAZN. I think they're both. It's great for to be a boxing fan at this moment in time.
100%. And listen, we're going to do a podcast strictly based on the Day of Reckoning card. It's a card we're all looking forward to. Eddie Hearn done an interview today. I believe it was with the MMA Hour, and he said that time is running out for Chris Eubank Jr. to get his deal done to fight Conor Benn. It seems like a never-ending saga. We do know Conor Benn is going to fight early February, whether that's at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium or whether it's in America, but the opponent is still to be unknown. Ron, I mean, I don't believe for a second Eubank Jr. doesn't want this fight. I believe he does want this fight. Are you surprised that this fight has not been announced yet? Because I honestly thought, all right, okay, given by what happened with the whole sort of failing the drugs test, now that Conor Benn's sort of got his career back on track, Eubank Jr. beat Liam Smith, I thought that this would be a no-brainer to be made. It hasn't been made. What do you think the hold-up is right now?
I think Eddie Hearn is desperate to hold this fight in the UK. Right, two British, sons of legends themselves. He wants to do it in the UK. Does it sell as well in the UAE or Saudi? I don't know. I think something like this we would love to kind of see at the Tottenham Stadium or Wembley, or you take your pick where we can hold it. So I think that's the biggest hold up. It's well documented about Conor Benn's kind of back and forth with the British Boxing Board of Control, with the WBA, which about his VADA and all that stuff.
I believe it's a WBC.
The bottom line is, WBC, my apologies. The bottom line is, it's not really been resolved with the British Board of Boxing or Control. So that's where he needs to do it, and that's where he's finding this problem. I mean, the only reason he has had a fight is because he fought in the US. I don't know if he's renewed his license. Do you know what
he hasn't
what
renewed his
the
license.
situation is with that?
No, he hasn't renewed his license.
So,
with the British Boxing Board of Control, and they've
so how does
also
that fight take place in the UK?
But they'd have to do what they've done with Haney or perhaps go to the Luxembourg committee or find another committee. But Eddie Hearn in previous interviews has stated that that's the last thing he wants to do. But then I'm thinking, well, if the British Boxing Board of Control do not want to sanction the fight, don't put the fight on until this whole mess is cleared up. You know, it's a situation that's not been resolved, and I just think it's a bad look on boxing. Now, until you actually resolve this situation, you know, because you're right, we want this fight in the UK, but until this situation gets resolved, you know, I don't think Conor Benn should fight in the UK, you know, because he's got a beef going on with the British Boxing Board of Control, you know. I mean, how much of a bad look is it, right? Given the fact that the history behind this fight, yeah, the greatest British fighters this country's seen, right? Their sons potentially fight each other, and they can't get it sanctioned by the British Boxing Board of Control. It's a very bad look on boxing. It stains boxing, but most importantly, the fight loses a lot of credibility. You know, the British Boxing Board of Control, whatever your thought on them is, right? They are the daddy, okay? You want them on side, but at the same time, you know, Conor Benn got cleared what was it? September, October. So we're 3 months into it now. Eddie Hearn in the back of his mind has always wanted to make this fight, okay? So you've had 3 months to sort the situation out. Why has it been left so long? You know, who right now behind their teams is sitting down and saying, well, do you know what? It's all good announcing you want to take it to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You know, you might want to take it to the US. Let's get the situation resolved with the British Boxing Board of Control first. Let's get Conor Benn to get his license back, and then we could think about making the fight. So maybe from Eubank Jr.'s point of view, he's probably looking at the politics and thinking, now, do you know what? This is a messy situation. I don't want to be involved in it. You know, the Eubanks are hard people to work with as it is. And how do we not know there's a bit? All right, maybe financially there's not a better offer out there, but I'm pretty sure right now if you offered Eubank Jr. a world title shot or a fighter like a Golovkin or the winner of Ryder Munguia, you might just say, do you know what? I'll take that fight. Because the fight with Conor Benn's not going anywhere. But the situation is a very messy situation. And as I said, Rod, in my opinion, it stains boxing. It's disgusting. They need to resolve the situation, and then we can all move on from it, and then we can get the fight.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, the sooner this gets resolved, there's been enough time. You know, he got cleared in September, but he wasn't cleared by the British Board of Boxing Control. So that's where we're having the issue. And I think you hit the nail on its head. Eubank's probably thinking, do I really want a piece? You know, I want this fight. I don't think Eubank's never said no or would ever say no. But it's like, do I want the aggro that's going to come with it? Because apparently, if Eubank Jr. was to fight him, he could lose his license, or his license could be compromised. Is that right? Do you know if you've heard anything like that?
I've heard something about that. I don't know if those rumors are true, but I just think Eubank Jr. right now doesn't want to be involved in the mess. I mean, given by what he went through before the first fight, before the original fight was meant to happen, he lost all that weight, and then the fight gets called off a few days before. He's probably looking at the situation right now and thinking, nope, it's too messy. I can't be risking signing a fight, putting myself in camp, potentially having to do it at another catch weight, and then for the fight to fall through again. I think until the situation is clear, I think until we can move on from it, that's when you make the fight. Right now, the best thing, what I would do, I'd keep Conor Benn active in America. If I was Chris Eubank Jr., I'd look elsewhere. But until the situation is resolved with the British Boxing Board of Control, that's when you make the fight. There's too much eagerness to make this fight. I get it. There's legacy behind it. You know, there's history behind it. But just sort out your basics, which is your issues with the British Boxing Board of Control. And then we can move on, and then we can get the fight. You know, do it in the summer. Ron, can you? I honestly think that this fight could sell 80,000 at Wembley. Just wait. What is the rush? What is the hurry? Keep them both active. Get a couple of wins under the belt. Sort the issue out with the British Boxing Board of Control. Get your license back. And forget the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Take it to Wembley. Wembley, 80,000 in the summer. Beautiful time for boxing to happen. Ron, before we end the podcast, there was another topic we needed to talk about, but we're going to leave that for today. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, one of my favorite boxers, Ebanie Bridges, also lost at the weekend as well. So, the blonde bomber.
Listen,
She lost on
commiserations
points.
to Ebanie. She lost on the night, and she was, she was very, she showed a lot of respect after the fight, just like Regis Prograis did. And that's what I love about boxing. No excuses. Lost on the night, was lost to the better fighter. And Ebanie Bridges, listen, she's a household name. She's gonna come again. She's gonna be involved in bigger and better fights. And I love her weigh-ins as well. I absolutely love her weigh-ins. That is what sells women's boxing. Ron, that's all we've got time for today on podcast 68. To the viewers out there, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Check us out on all the social media platforms. Ron, once again, happy belated birthday, my man. Commiserations on Man United's run in Europe. It had to come to an end at some point. And guys, please make sure you check us out on all the social media platforms. And again, if you want to listen to this audio podcast on any of the audio platforms, please check out the links below. Thank you very much, guys, for listening to podcast 68 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast.